now I'm pleased to join Julian Lotz with plastics that are up to 100% bio-based and in theory biodegradable. Julian and BIOVOX are setting new limits in the medical sector. Julian will explain the importance of a plastic selection approach and in considering the whole life cycle, right?
Yep.
Have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, nice to be here. It has really been a packed September for me, and I'm a bit tired, so excuse me if I'm a bit less nimble than usual. But I've brought you a lot of different topics about sustainability, bioplastics, and how to make sustainability in healthcare successful. That's the main topic that I brought here. Also because, I mean, the slogan of Ultra Polymers is a spirit of partnership, and we found that collaboration and some sort of partnership working along the whole value chain and having the whole life cycle in mind, this is essential to find truly sustainable solutions and not to optimize a certain point in the life cycle and making it worse on other parts of the life cycle. So that's the key point we'll get to later on. But first, some basics. I mean, I don't have to explain that we have really a lot of single-use plastics and a lot of volume in plastics, and also a lot of waste because of that. Healthcare Plastics Recycling Council talks about 15 million tons per year for all of the healthcare applications and lab applications. And what I calculated for a conference last week was if you know the Berlin TV tower, then this is about 9 times that one per week. So it's a quite light building, but it is a lot of plastics that we have there. So having that in mind, we really are not in the position to say, hey, we are saving lives with healthcare and we are exempt from any sustainability regulation or anything like that. This will also come to our industry mandatory, so we need to work with that. If you calculate the carbon footprint from that, assuming that we have around 6 kilos of carbon emissions per kilo of plastic, and that's roughly the incineration and the footprint of the plastics cradle to gate, then we are 2.5 times the CO2 footprint of Sweden, so also quite significant. And also that might be a difference when I'm talking about the footprints. I'm usually targeting cradle to grave. Of course, you can't really influence the end of life as a material producer, for example, or the device manufacturer. But from our perspective, end of life is crucial to select the right material at the beginning, because different materials, of course, have different carbon contents, therefore release different amounts of carbon emissions when incinerated. Some are better for chemical recycling, some better for mechanical recycling, and all of that comes into play, and you should have a look at the whole product life cycle, of course. So no carbon reductions by over 100%. That's totally valid for cradle to gate, but I'm usually taking incineration into account. Besides climate change and sustainability on the ecological side, we also have other topics in the industry. Quick question, who really likes canned food still? Not that many people. I mean, yeah, we have BPA in there. EU is regulating that or plans to regulate BPA in plastics, for example. Why do we have that in medical plastics still? Why do we want to have PVC, PC, etc. in applications that are highly critical for the human health if we ban it from food packaging? Doesn't make much sense, and this will also be targeted by regulation. That's pretty evident. I haven't researched for all of the English versions of the news, but basically what we can see there, PFAS is a topic, critical substances is a topic, besides the climate topic, and there is a lot of regulation going on. And also from a business perspective, healthcare industry likes to keep PFAS or PTFE, fluoropolymers, but first ones are stopping their production. So if you stick with that as a medical device manufacturer, you simply wouldn't be able to purchase the materials in maybe a decade or something like that. So making a change now towards future-proof materials is quite crucial also for the future security of your businesses. And regarding this, hey, we want to do the old stuff, I mean, I'm pretty sure that most of you are different than that, but there's still some companies in the industry that say, hey, we'll just influence the legislator and then we'll have some exemptions. That might work, but that works basically for something like 5 years, like we see in the PPWR. So there won't be a permanent exemption. We get more time for healthcare, of course, because having safe solutions is more important than having quick, more sustainable solutions. But in the end, we need to do both. And if we look at the lead times that we have with new projects, new product developments, then we also need the time, of course. It's not wrong that we have longer times until we need to change, but we still have to start working now. Just like Bernd said, that's now is the time. And also regarding the exemption sides, I mean, healthcare sector has more greenhouse gas emissions than, for example, shipping and flights. So this is also a reason why we can't get around doing something in our industry. Last but not least, it's not just pushing from legislation side, it's also the customer side. There was a nice report from Deloitte that figured out, basically, I'll translate it shortly, that the management of hospitals, they are very well aware that they need to change, and that also their scope 3, being around 70% of their emissions too, that they have a high relevance for more sustainable solutions there. The other points are basically that they are not there yet, that they are working more on a tactical level, but not on a strategic level, and there's not that much going on so far in terms of actual change. But we work with a lot of university medical centers, and they really are paving the path towards a more sustainable procurement, for example. So there will be also a market need for more sustainable products. It's not just a bet or a commitment by our industries. The customer will ask that too. So how does a medtech company feel right now? Feel inside yourself, and what's that comes to your mind. It might be this picture. So changing materials is quite difficult, and we don't really want to do that because it's expensive and needs a lot of work. But in the end, legislation and customers will drag us there. And as also Bernd said, starting now and having the commitment by all of us, that will be a much easier way than waiting it out and being a bit short on time in the end. And if you would have a look at the world from the side of a medtech company, then that's basically, you have the elephant in the room, being regulation of greenhouse gas emissions or critical substances. And it's really complicated in our highly regulated business. So you don't see basically where you can get through all of this jungle, where you can find a way towards more sustainable solutions and products. And that where collaboration comes into play. It's so complicated because we have the high security or safety requirements in the industry, and on the other hand, highly sophisticated technical solutions. And bringing this all together, it's a lot of knowledge, and adding up sustainability on top of all of that, that's not easy to do. And therefore we need the solution. And I mean, the solution is also BIOVOX Blue. But solution would also be collaborating, maybe a bit more productive than those guys, but having a bit of fun's also always good for creativity. And then I brought this quickly drawn model. If we want to make sustainable solutions happen, then we need to start with a strategy. If we don't know where we want to end up, then it's quite difficult to get there, of course. So top management needs strategy and the commitment to do so. Again, referring to Bernd, commitment is really key by all of the players in the value chain. Most important is, of course, besides defining what you have as a priority in impact, you today can't have the perfect solution, but you have to prioritize if it's more greenhouse gases, recycling content, or whatever. Set a time frame, set impact goals, so basically define a suitable project. But also, really important, put a price tag on that. If management doesn't decide, we want to spend amount X for reaching a sustainable solution, then development, product management, whoever will always come to the point where they say, hey, we have a sustainable solution, but it's 4% more expensive. And I don't know if that's okay or not for the company, if we make enough money or not, or if it's suiting our goals. So you need the decision first on what is it worth to you being more sustainable. And you have to provide resources in terms of capacities, of course, but also in terms of money. If we look at the development phases, basically, of our sustainable products, then, of course, it's the functions that you have, R&D, quality management, product management, operations. You need to do the paperwork, basically doing the LCAs, be aware where are your hotspots, how do you allocate your resources in a useful way, and of course, challenge requirements. I'm also always saying requirements are the bad experiences of the last decades, because there was the project where it doesn't really work out and we needed to go to a more expensive material to make it work at some point, because market entry is getting closer and validation. And then, we'll just take the more expensive material and it will work out. And the next product generation, you have the specifications of the more expensive material in there. Nobody questions it anymore. And after 3 or 4 generations of products, you end up with materials that are way more complicated and expensive than they would need to be. And this was not as bad with the current materials, highly sophisticated materials. But we could use much more sustainable materials if we would refer back to what do we actually need in the field in the use phase of the product. For example, temperature stability. Is it always 70 degrees Celsius, or is the pharmaceutical more like at 40 or 50 degrees Celsius? Design for sustainability, etc., constant evaluation, we all know that, pretty important. And in the end, marketing, also pretty important to have successful sustainability. I mean, follow the Green Claims Directive from the EU, that will come, and you need substance behind your claims, of course. Should have that anyhow, the data from development. Be precise, not creative, so stick to the facts, and then you're pretty much out of any shitstorm risks. And then harvest the success, because actually the response to sustainability is pretty positive, so why not have something out of that in regards of more business? And of course, ask people that know about this stuff. So get yourself help if you are not an expert yet. And from my perspective, nobody in the industry is, even not me. So ask all of your suppliers and partners to work with you in the projects, spirit of partnership basically, and get the knowledge into the projects, because then you will have a faster approach to the solution. Less iterations, less resources spent, and a better solution in the end. Some examples that I brought. This is, for example, a holder of a surgical device. HDPE before, structural optimization with PLA, much more stiffness and rigidity, so we could reduce the material by up to 40% basically, different versions of the part. Minus 61% carbon emissions over all of the life cycle, 4% more costs of the part, so that's quite a nice result. Or we are collaborating with Röchling since several years now. They developed a trocar system. That's also part of that, the centerpiece. Minus 51% carbon emissions, over 30% less material because of higher stiffness and strength. Designed for sustainability, designed for disassembly is all in there, and also BPA free. So there's really a nice product coming out of that. Some other products that we have, of course, packaging, hard blister packaging for sterile barriers, a lot of business in the IVDs or endoscopic applications. And this is one that you actually can buy a lab rack, basically, so also in the lab field, there's the demand for sustainability. Then, at least for the German-speaking audience, we have the Allianz für nachhaltige Medizintechnik, so the Alliance for Sustainable MedTech. Co-founded that. It's a network to exchange along the whole value chain. We have a lot of clinics in there, researchers, material suppliers, consultants, development agencies, OEMs, the whole value chain, and a lot of topics. So if you're interested, get back to me, I can add you to the network. And sometimes we also have live discussions like at MedTech Live this year. Great discussion, full audience, pretty much around 80 people that joined the discussion. Experts on the stage, was really great. So there we really exchange about what to do and how to do it and learn from each others. A few words about BIOVOX. We see ourselves as a pivotal point for sustainable medical grade plastics. We are especially looking at the whole value chain and trying to find the right solution. And sadly, so far there's not always a good solution. So if we don't have one, we don't sell you one, then stick with the current material or use material from another supplier. But we are doing what makes sense in the end. We are qualifying, scouting, doing the quality management for actually bio-based polymers. So we don't do mass balanced approach, but this is really made from 100% plants, including the additives. And yeah, and then we produce the materials and support the life cycle, including recycling. We have recycling projects going on with chemical recycling, monomer recycling in this case, for example, to really enhance the sustainability and the circularity in the industry. Also research projects, it's not only bio-based but also captured carbon. This will take a few years, of course, until industrialization and scale up, but this is also a field where we are active in. The products themselves, it's VDE 2017 compliant medical grades, so we are doing the biocomp testing, we have a change control, we have a quality management, that's medical standards, so everything that you get from a medical grade so far, but now in physically bio-based and with new polymers that haven't been available to the industry before with other properties, so quite interesting. And in terms of sustainability, added before, much less carbon emissions, that's cradle to grave basically that you can save, and really well recyclable, fully circular, even if you incinerate the materials. So that's pretty easy to get sustainable with our materials. Is recycling possible? That's the last question for my presentation so far. So we've seen this slide before in different variants. That's the classic one, so I don't need to explain. That's pretty good. So it saves us time. But in the end, I mean, what we haven't talked about today is the interactions that you have along the life cycle and that make collaboration so important. For example, if you are planning for materials that get collected with the standard plastic waste, let's say a soft bag packaging, secondary or tertiary packaging, and this will get thrown away in the hospital in the standard plastic waste. Then it would be great, for example, to keep the polyethylene bag, because the recyclability of this polyethylene bag is pretty good, the mechanical recyclability. You will be in the mechanical recycling loop, that's pretty efficient, and then that's great, so use some bio-PE. If you are, for example, packaging surgical instruments and they get gamma sterilized, for example, you have degradation in the material, damage in the material, and this is potentially contaminated. It's inside of the operating theater, and then today it goes to incineration. But if we think further towards chemical recycling to get back in the same applications, then it's better to have a polyester, because chemical recycling with polyesters is much more efficient compared to polyolefins, for example. So there is interactions between the sterilizing methods, the life cycle, where in the hospital does the product get disposed, that all influence the choice of materials. And therefore you need to know about different types of recycling and also what the customer does in the end with the product. And then we can choose the right materials. And there is no right or wrong material in general. We will not have the single source of truth material that can do everything and still is sustainable. We will have a variety of materials also in the future, at least as large as today, maybe even more materials compared to today, because the materials that are truly sustainable often are a bit more specialized and not as generalistic as the materials today in terms of their properties. I'm pretty sure there is a few questions open, so if anybody needs inspiration for questions, there might be some. If you want to know more about bioplastics, sustainability, etc., we have also a lot of info material there. So get rid of the fossil risks and go towards bioplastics. This was our motto this year. We gave away Lego dinosaurs for all of the customers that got rid of their fossil plastics. There's a bit of content on LinkedIn. We have a bio wiki with a lot of info material ever growing. And yeah, let's make these towers disappear together. I think that can work out. And yeah, I'm here for discussions. Happy for your questions.